Yeah, I'm Bob Raybuck. I'm currently CEO of Peninsula Building Materials. I joined the company 2013, right on the cusp of the 90-year anniversary of the company. Joined as a CFO, did that for a few years, and as leadership has evolved, I took over leadership of the company about 5 years ago.
My name's Marty Morey, and I've been retired from Peninsula for about 10 years now. I remember one of my first jobs was cleaning real used brick for a penny a piece. And I got to work in the yard starting out, and wonderful experience. The hardest part of the job was getting everybody there every day. I think everybody was there every day, but it was just, you had to keep going and you had to show up.
Uncle Marty, I think he was referred to as the general. So he could be a tough boss, but a fair boss.
I started in what they would call the hardware department back then, which doesn't really exist nowadays, but started pulling orders, cutting all thread, actually delivering orders.
Joe Morey. He's the one that hired me on a trial basis. So I never actually got a permanent date. The reason I was on a trial basis is that they'd never had a female at the counter in the construction trades before. And if they had, they didn't work out.
I pretty clearly remember going up to the conference room up in Redwood City and being interviewed by him. And I kind of felt like he was trying to talk me out of the job a little bit because there wasn't much to do. I don't think they really needed somebody at the time.
My dad, had this strong work ethic back in the day, so you weren't going to the beach during the summer, you were working for the family business.
Working side by side with the owners and seeing what type of guys they were, where they would actually, it was nothing to see Donald out there shoveling a sack of sand or something like that. So you kind of realize at a young age that nothing's beneath anybody and you just need to do whatever you need to do to get the job done.
Well, you clocked in and you made sure you weren't 30 seconds late, because then you'd be in having a rough day for sure.
I think a lot of the time, like a lot of us probably growing up, it was trial by fire, whether it was learning how to drive a forklift or driving even a pickup truck, which I had no experience even driving a stick shift.
It was always pretty tough, demanding work. There's a lot of lifting, a lot of moving.
We did a lot of things by hand. In fact, we did everything by hand. If a guy needed sacks of concrete, we didn't go grab it with a forklift. We had the guys back up to the pallet and we would hand load it.
Then you're competing with the other employees who could curl the most rebar to put on the cutting machine. So a lot of fun competition that kept everyone, having fun doing not a fun job.
My Uncle John, one of the former presidents of the company, he was, to me, I always looked at him, he was less involved in the day-to-day operations, but was doing the executive function. But he always had time, whether it was me working in the yard, I often had many lessons on the proper way to sweep. And I can still see him now taking the broom. Oh, his first mantra was always, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean. So I always knew if I heard him coming down, I better get moving and doing something, so I'd grab a broom. But then it would be a pause to make sure to show me the proper way that things were to be swept.
So the Menlo Park Yard, the Peninsula Building Materials logo is from the Menlo Park Yard. That's the bunkers that we show on our stationery and so forth. And that was material storage for all the bulk sands and gravels. And it was a landmark in Menlo Park on the El Camino, and stood there from 1923 to 1981.
One story is, they had faith in all their customers, so on the weekends they basically put a notepad on a fence post. Customers would go in, pick up what material they wanted, and sign out to what they took.
John Jr.'s office was in this 12 by 12 cylinder cell.
One of my fondest memories of Menlo Park is when the Christmas tree went on, because we knew that was going to be Christmas. And these are people who are, my age in the 50s or even older, and they totally remember that.
So Sunnyvale's always been a family to me. Every employee we're all friends. You know, after work, we'd all hang out, talk.
And one of the people that I remember working closest with after I'd been there for a little while was Sue. She ended up kind of training me. You know, I was working in the warehouse, but over a period of time, I started stocking the store, bringing materials from the warehouse into the store.
One time I stocked the store too much and everything fell down overnight. And Donald Morey had to come in at 2 in the morning because the alarm went off because my things fell off the shelf.
We started to notice an abundance of strollers coming through our yard, you know, parents pushing their kids through the yard to look at natural stone.
Probably in 2004, 2005, we started seeing the need to maybe build a showroom, an indoor showroom.
How we did it, we got masons who we actually paid to install the material.
I think before we started, I really didn't realize how much art there was to masonry.
We like having people come to the yard because they can see all the stone, you know, all the variations of color in the stone in the yard. But sometimes people can't just picture it. You know, when they look at a bunch of stones piled up in a pallet, they don't really understand what it's going to look like when it's on their wall. So having them come here and be able to see the different displays, it helps some people out.
One thing with Peninsula is it's always been customer orientated. You know, we try and make sure our customers are taken care of.
You know, one thing I was always trained to do is that if we didn't have something, we still took the information down and figured out something. We never wanted to be short with something, just say, we don't sell that.
And we do have customers that started buying from us when we opened in San Martin 30 years ago that are still customers today. And there are several of them that have been with us all this time. So I'd like to think that, you know, we are supplying value to them and able to help them out in their projects.
This goes back to my Uncle Junior. He was a relationship king. All the big builders in this valley.
Well, I mean, the company's really has, over the years, over the decades, has carved out a real niche in the Bay Area, a level of standing within the marketplace, with customers, with vendors, as really the preeminent distributor of our product lines in the Bay Area. So there's that history, there's those relationships, and that kind of institutional knowledge.
Going back in my historical search, and I didn't even have to do it because we've had these legacy, you know, philanthropy kind of deals. Whether you know, Menlo Park, of course, was a much smaller place, you know, 100 years ago. So everybody knew each other. The schools that are still there, St. Raymond's, Nativity, Sacred Heart. So that concept of giving back and being a part of the community has always been there.
We're 4th generation, me, Nancy, Luke, and Adam. I'd love to see a 5th generation.
I think the operating assumption is that they'd like the next 100 years to be as successful as the last 100 years, and that Peninsula Building Materials continues to be a great asset that benefits its employees, its customers, its market, and its family ownership.